Good afternoon, guys. Listen, JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, he's put out a warning, and also there's other stuff going on, geopolitical stuff. I got a lot of ground to cover in this one, so let's get started by opening up the charts right here, and let's take a look at what we got going on in the world right here. First off, we're going to take a look at JP Morgan and his new warning. It says it seems to be deteriorating a bit. JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon says he's watching a host of geopolitical risks that are facing markets. He warned investors about growing economic and geopolitical risks on Friday during the bank's third quarter earnings. Now, you got to understand something. This is one of the biggest banks in the world. Jamie Dimon speaks for the bank. He is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. And he's warning investors right now about the growing risk. He's saying that the U.S. and the global economy are continuing to show strength, I guess primarily in the United States. I mean, jobs, because of the money influx that's come from tax rebates and stuff like that, jobs have picked up a bit, and also earnings have picked up a little bit. Now, but this is in a backdrop against tremendous economic and geopolitical uncertainties. He went on to list he rattled off some of these things, like the BRIC exit, and the Italian risk, and the reversals of quantitative easing. He talked about Turkey. He talked about Argentina, Saudi Arabia, an extensive list of things. And he talked about the economy being derailed, the strong U.S. economy, how easily it could be derailed with all these things that are happening. These warnings are coming at the conclusion of a week when stocks in the bond market fell the most in months, without a clear catalyst. But the catalyst might be right here in what Jamie Dimon is talking about. And, when economic troubles start to come, they always lead to war, generally, in the end. So let's get into some of these things that are going on. First, let's talk about China's artificial islands. Now, in the South China Sea, there's an area that's called the Spratly Islands. And what these pictures are right here, the Chinese, what they did is they went into an area of the ocean where there was nothing. There's nothing there. And they took these boats called dredgers. And what the dredger basically does is they drop a hose down into the bottom of the seafloor, and it sucks up the sand. And it pumps the sand out the other end, and they pumped the sand until they built a reef. And then later, they actually built an island. So they built islands where there wasn't any islands before. So here's some pictures of these islands. Now, we're going to go back to these pictures of these islands in just a minute. First, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the International Court of Justice. So, the International Court of Justice is a court of The Hague. It's called the Court of The Hague, and it is the International Court of Justice, the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. It settles all the legal disputes between the member states of the world in the UN. So this is the big court of the world, right? Now, going back a while ago, the court at The Hague decided on these Spratly Islands, where the Chinese are building these artificial islands. And they made a decision that China has no rights to the area whatsoever. And that they made a decision that these islands do not exist. There's nothing there, because there was nothing there. The Chinese built these islands. They did not recognize these islands because these islands were what they considered to be artificial. Okay, so they made that ruling. China has no right to the to these islands to claim them as sovereign territory because these islands do not exist. So there is also a law called the Freedom of Navigation Law. And the freedom of navigation means that where there's no land masses or anything, open ocean, you have the law entitles them to have freedom to move through the world's oceans, and it's called the freedom of navigation. In maritime law, the freedom of navigation. So the Court of The Hague ruled that the United States has the right of freedom of navigation through this area, this disputed area called the Spratly Islands, where the Chinese built these artificial islands. What was China's position on all this? Well, when the Court of The Hague decided this, China said, no way, no way. They said, anybody comes into that area, we're going to give them a black eye. That's what China said. That was China's position. China's position was, this is unfair. They said, these islands are there, they're our sovereign territory, and we're not relinquishing control of these islands. And China was very upset about it. Okay? That was China's position on it at the time. I remember. China said, that's it. These islands are ours. We built them, they're ours. Okay, so now let's take a look at these islands. What China is upset about. Here's one picture right here. Of course, it's not a very good picture. It's kind of small. Okay. Here's a bigger version of it right here. Let's narrow in on it and take a look. What they're doing in here, they got this is just one of many of the islands that the Chinese have built. They've invested billions and billions of dollars building these islands and time, and they've built military bases on these islands. They've got runways, they've got ships. See the ships from the air here? There's about 5 or 6 ships down here at the bottom of this island. It's really quite big. The runways, they've got housing accommodations, they've got schools, they've got everything built on these islands. Now, this is just one of these islands. Let's take a look at more. There's more of them here. Here's another one right here. Another picture of one of these islands. And so you can see that China's got a lot invested, you know. Let me see if we can find some more. Here's another one right here. We can see that this is another one of the islands that China's building on. And you can see cranes there. You can see they're in the process of building and construction. They got a ship there. They've got barracks. They've got all kinds of stuff. They've got radar facilities built. Here, look at this one. Out in the middle of the ocean, they've got radar facilities built. They're building military infrastructure. Here's another one right here. All kinds of stuff they're building out in these islands. They got jet planes. They've got everything set up for themselves. And they have no plan whatsoever of leaving. Now, the United States, through the Freedom of Navigation Law, they say, okay, we can sail through that region. And the Chinese say, this is our sovereign territory. You're not sailing through this region. The Chinese are very defensive about it. So let's take a look at what happened not long ago. Okay, so this just happened, I think a couple weeks ago. It's 2 destroyers. One of these destroyers in the pictures is Chinese, and the other one is an American destroyer in that disputed region. The Chinese destroyer is the one in behind. It's chasing the American destroyer, and you could quite literally throw a baseball between the bow of the Chinese destroyer and the stern of the American destroyer. They're that close together, quite literally. And this, I mean, the American destroyer, I can see they're full steam ahead, and so is the Chinese destroyer in this picture. U.S. Navy ship, Chinese destroyer, nearly collide is the article. But it's more than that. What I see is the Chinese destroyer chasing the American destroyer. That's what I see. I don't see a collision here. I see the Chinese being very aggressive over what they consider to be their sovereign territory, but the United States, through the ruling of The Hague, considers that to be open seas for the freedom of navigation. Okay, so this is a huge problem right here in these artificial islands in the South China Sea. It's gone unresolved, but can you see how a war could erupt so quick between China and the United States? Now, what would this war look like if it actually came to fruition? If it actually happened, what would this war look like? Well, I personally believe that it wouldn't be a world war where there's nukes dropping. I don't think that's what would happen. I think we would move into the same position that the United States was in when they were fighting Japan in World War II in the Pacific. It'd be a similar sort of a situation where it would be uh, aircraft carriers, it would be destroyers, it would be submarines, battling it out over the South China Sea. This is what I believe that would happen. I believe that it would stay conventional. And the motive of the United States would be control over the South China Sea. The motive of the Chinese would be control over the South China Sea. The South China Sea, why they want it so bad, I think it's something like $5 trillion worth of commerce moves through that region. I believe there's oil in that region. There's natural resources in that region. It's a very much hotbed for war to start in the world. So I wanted to bring this to you guys' attention right now, what's going on. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next show. And I hope you guys are having a great weekend. Bye-bye, guys.